Hey everybody, it's Big L. Today I'm coming at you with a question pulled directly off my Facebook page, which is AC Fitness and Nutrition. If you haven't already liked it, please go there and do so. Okay, so this post is by Daniel Morelli, and he says, I'm trying to add some lean muscle mass this winter whilst keeping fat gain to a minimum. For someone who gains fat quite easily, what tips would you recommend when trying to manage nutrition and insulin sensitivity? Okay, Daniel. So, first I'll give you my tips on trying to um, bulk up whilst keeping the fat gain to a minimum. Really, the main tip I can give you with this is trial and error. Um, Everyone will find after a while of having the calories at quite a high point, i.e. an off-season point. Let's say this is their threshold of gaining weight or losing weight. I would honestly say your best calorie point for gaining muscle mass will be just above that threshold. If you go too far above it, you're going to gain a lot of fat, and the additional muscle gains will be of no real benefit to what you could have had if you stayed just above the threshold. Now, whilst doing that, you want to make sure that a lot of other factors are perfect in order to gain muscle. And what I'm saying there is that it's not impossible to gain muscle in a caloric deficit. I'll give you the example of, say for example, a 25 stone fat guy who has never weight trained in his life, who is eating, let's say, 8,000 calories a day. That's what made him fat, right? If he were to decrease his calories by 1,000 and go down to 7,000 calories, he's still in a caloric deficit. Well, say for example, if we added weight training to his regime, we added cardio to his regime, we optimized his hormones by doing stuff with his diet and supplementation, of course he's still going to gain muscle because he's only just started weight training. He's only just started eating a proper bodybuilding diet, but he's still in a caloric deficit. It all depends on where you were previously to where you're at now. So what I'm trying to say to you is, if everything else in your regime is perfect, you should still be able to gain muscle without upping your calories or eating a junk-filled diet. So really the basics apply. Eat complex carbs throughout most of your meals of the day which are not around your weight training. The only time I really rely on sugars quite a lot is post-training. Again, the other thing is trial and error. Just up your calories gradually to a point where you feel, tell you what, I'm getting a bit fat here, so therefore the best thing to do sometimes then is just diet that fat off and start again, just gradually adding them, gradually, till you get to what you find is an optimal point. Okay, so the other thing you wanted to know about is insulin sensitivity. You mentioned in a previous post, which you put on my wall, that you wanted to know about that. Alright, so we'll first examine what is insulin sensitivity and what is insulin resistance. They kind of diametrically oppose each other. Alright? So a person who is insulin sensitive is a person who can shuttle blood glucose or shuttle, carbs into the muscle cell efficiently. Alright, so if you're a bodybuilder, if you're training with weights, and if you're not used to eating lots and lots of sugar, if you've just trained, you are very insulin sensitive. You are gonna take in some, post-workout, let's say for example a banana, and your blood sugar is gonna go up a little bit. And then, your pancreas is gonna say, oh, hold on, we need to secrete some insulin here, and we need to shuttle that glucose to the muscle cell. And that's all fine and dandy because you're replacing lost glycogen and whatnot, and you're filling your glycogen reserves up for the next time you go and you train. Okay, so that's in a perfect ideal world. Whereas if you're a normal person, you don't train, and you know you rely heavily on a diet which is high in sugar, and you take no protein with that, no fiber, which are gonna all lower the blood glucose and insulin response, and you go out and you eat a big piece of cake, okay, and you continue doing this and doing it and doing it. After a while, your muscle cells are gonna be like, you know what, we're kind of full up, we're tired of this. So they're going to become resistant. That's what insulin resistance is. So therefore, all this cake and all this sugar has nowhere else to go, and it's going to go to the fat cells, and you're going to get fat. That's basically what insulin resistance is in a nutshell. So now you ask, how do I become more insulin sensitive? How do I make my muscles fuller? How do I keep fat gain to a minimum? So the biggest tip I can give you is train. Training increases insulin sensitivity. Okay. One I can give you is the lower your carbs are, the more insulin sensitive you'll be when you come to take in the carbs after. But that's like a double-edged sword, because if you're never taking any carbs, you're probably limiting your muscle gains and you're limiting how full you can be, but your insulin sensitivity will be really high. Whereas if taking lots of carbs all the time, you're just going to get fat, your insulin sensitivity is going to be low. So what I do in the off season is I base all my carbohydrate intake, not all of it, most of it, around the end of my workout. So the 2 meals after my workout, my shake and my fruit, and then the meal after that, I have my highest carbs when I'm most insulin sensitive. And before my workouts, I will have low carb meals. Okay. And the other thing I do in the off season is I have a couple of days where I cut my carbs right down, and that's going to increase my insulin sensitivity. I do that on the days where I don't need them as much, i.e., the 1 or 2 days in the week where I rest or I have the least demanding workouts. So I'll give you the example. My normal amount of carbs in the off season is 550. And I have 2 days where I cut them down to 200, and I up my fat intake to compensate for the lost calories, so I can still recover in between the workouts. Alright, so they're the really kind of practical things that you can do to increase insulin sensitivity, and there are some supplements too. Not necessarily a supplement, but ground cinnamon, the stuff that you can buy in the supermarket. 2 or 3 teaspoons per day of that. You can mix it into your oats, mix it into your shakes. That's going to improve your insulin sensitivity. Another supplement is alpha lipoic acid. If you take 300 milligrams servings of that, take the R form, not the S form. If you take 300 milligrams of servings of that 2 or 3 times a day, that's going to help you out. Also, omega-3 fish oils. I'll be quite honest, I need to do more research into the dosage of that, but I've always taken in the region of 10 to 20 grams a day, but I've heard guys like Charles Poliquin saying 30 grams of omega-3 fish oils a day, which is, it's a lot of money, and it would be great if everyone could afford that. Also, other supplements, magnesium, that increases insulin sensitivity. I've done another video on this, but really the recommended dosages range from 500 milligrams to 2,000 a day. It's better taken up by the body if you take it topically. However, orally, your best form is chelated. And the phone's ringing, so that's a pretty ideal time to stop this video. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of what you can do to stay lean in the off season and increase your insulin. I'm not going to get that. To be fair, it's probably canvases or there we go, it's gone. Yeah, so I hope you find those tips useful. Apply them to your training. Like I say, a lot of this is trial and error. I can't tell you a perfect amount of calories to take in, or one secret which is gonna, is going to just keep you lean all off season. It's something which actually I struggle with quite a lot. You know, I used to get really, really fat in the off season, and now I just kind of get moderately fat, which is, you know, it's still an improvement. So yeah, I'll see you next time.